In the quiet streets of 1960s London, a brilliant mind harbored a dark secret. As the city bustled with the energy of a post-war world, a young boy named Graham Young was cultivating an interest far removed from the innocent hobbies of his peers. He was a curious soul, drawn not to toys or games, but to the mesmerizing world of chemistry. But his interest was not in the creation of harmless potions or the simple joy of scientific discovery. Instead, Graham was captivated by the darker aspects of his passion. He was drawn to the lethal, the toxic, the deadly. His fascination was not with life, but with the power to extinguish it. As his knowledge grew, so did his obsession. This seemingly ordinary boy was on a path that would shake the foundations of his quiet London community. This is the chilling story of Graham Young, a teenager whose fascination with chemistry turned lethal. Meet Graham Young, a teenager with an extraordinary intellect and a dangerous obsession with toxic substances. Born in North London in the year 1942, Graham was not your typical child. His curiosity was insatiable, but it wasn't toys or games that caught his interest. Instead, he was drawn to the world of chemistry, a world filled with the power to create and destroy. From an early age, Graham's fascination with toxic substances was evident. He would spend hours poring over books about poisons, their effects, and how they worked. This was not a mere hobby, but rather a deep-seated obsession that consumed his every waking moment. His favorite poison, thallium, a heavy metal notoriously difficult to detect. Graham's obsession didn't stop at the theoretical. He began conducting his own experiments, not in a lab, but within the confines of his family home. His subjects were not lab rats or guinea pigs, but his own flesh and blood. His stepmother, father, and sister unknowingly became the test subjects in his dangerous game. His first victim was his stepmother, Molly. After weeks of suffering from mysterious symptoms, she tragically passed away. The cause of death was initially ruled as natural, but Graham knew better. It was his first successful experiment. His father and sister were next. They suffered from similar symptoms, but luckily, they survived. Despite their recovery, these were not isolated incidents. They marked the start of a chilling pattern that would continue throughout Graham's life. Remember, this was a teenager, no older than 15 at the time. A boy who should have been playing football or studying for exams was instead perfecting the art of poisoning. It was a twisted game, one he played with a chilling calmness and precision. His early experiments on family members foreshadowed a troubled path ahead. The boy who once held such promise was now headed down a dark road, one that would lead to destruction, pain, and ultimately, justice. But that, dear listeners, is a story for another time. Graham's actions led to institutionalization, but his return to society marked the beginning of a more sinister chapter. A seemingly innocuous teenager, Graham Young was sent to a mental institution after his toxic experiments were discovered. This was a place where he was supposed to get help, to be rehabilitated. However, it was here that his fascination with poison only intensified. Within the confines of Broadmoor Hospital, Graham found a new playground. He spent his days studying chemistry books, learning more about deadly substances and honing his craft. His obsession was not tempered but instead fueled. His intellect and charm led him to manipulate the staff, convincing them of his recovery. He was a master of deception, a trait that would serve him well upon his release. After 9 years, Graham was released back into society. He was only 23 years old, yet he had the knowledge and cunning of a seasoned criminal. His family, relieved by his freedom, was unaware of the monster that had been nurtured within the institution's walls. They welcomed him back, hoping for a fresh start. But Graham had other plans. His return to society marked the beginning of what would be known as the teacup poisonings. He used his family as unsuspecting test subjects, perfecting his lethal brew. Each cup of tea carried a sinister secret, a deadly concoction that would wreak havoc on their bodies. His family, bewildered and terrified, could not comprehend the source of their suffering. The effect on his family was devastating. They had hoped for a new beginning, a chance to rebuild their lives. Instead, they found themselves in a nightmare they couldn't escape. They were victims in their own home, at the mercy of a loved one who had lost all sense of humanity. The question that haunts us is, how did his family cope with the aftermath? As Graham's poisonings escalated, investigators faced a challenging puzzle. The quiet London streets, once a symbol of peace, were now the backdrop of a chilling series of crimes. The poisonings, seemingly random and without motive, were a mystery that needed unraveling. Graham Young, the mastermind behind these horrific acts, had managed to blend in with society, his dark secret hidden behind a facade of normality. But as the incidents increased, patterns began to emerge. It was these patterns that drew the attention of law enforcement and initiated what would become an intense, complicated investigation. The key to cracking this case lay in the intricate knowledge of toxicology. Young's choice of poison was not random. He chose substances that were difficult to trace, that would leave the victims suffering for days or even weeks before they succumbed to their fate. This slow-acting poison was a signature, a cruel mark of a calculating mind. Detectives, working closely with scientists and medical experts, began to connect the dots. They started to piece together the puzzle, tracing the poisonings back to a common thread: Graham Young. The realization was chilling. The boy, once institutionalized for his dangerous obsession with toxicology, had returned to society only to resume his lethal experiments. Interviews with law enforcement and legal experts revealed the complexity of the case. Young's knowledge of chemistry was so advanced it was almost beyond comprehension. He knew how to manipulate substances, how to leave no trace, how to deceive the medical professionals who were desperately trying to save his victims. It was a chilling testament to his intelligence and his lack of empathy. The investigation was not just a race against time, it was a battle of wits. Young was always one step ahead, his actions calculated and precise. But as the net began to tighten, even his brilliant mind could not outmaneuver the determined detectives. The final piece of the puzzle fell into place when Young's co-worker fell ill under mysterious circumstances. The similarities to previous poisonings were undeniable, and this was the evidence investigators needed to make their move. The net closed in, and Young was arrested. The investigation into Graham Young's crimes was a journey into the darkest corners of the human mind. It revealed a chilling story of a brilliant teenager whose fascination with chemistry had turned lethal. It was a testament to the perseverance of law enforcement and the dedication of medical professionals who worked tirelessly to bring him to justice. Explore the intense investigation that finally connected the dots and revealed the true extent of his crimes. Young's story is a chilling reminder of the thin line between genius and madness, a line that he crossed with devastating consequences. Justice was served, but not without its share of courtroom drama. The trial of Graham Young was a spectacle that gripped the nation, a chilling testament to the consequences of a brilliant mind twisted by a dark obsession. Graham, the young chemist turned poisoner, stood in the dock, a picture of calm amidst the turmoil. The courtroom was a cauldron of tension, charged with the collective anxiety of a nation waiting for justice to be served. Key to the prosecution's case were the victims' impact statements, the voices of those who had suffered at the hands of Graham's lethal experiments. They painted a grim picture of the fear, pain, and loss that had befallen them. One by one, they took the stand, their voices trembling with emotion. There was the co-worker, forever haunted by the memory of a seemingly harmless cup of tea. The sister, mourning a lost sibling and wrestling with the guilt of not recognizing the signs. Each story was a chilling reminder of the human cost of Graham's deadly fascination. The defense, on the other hand, attempted to portray Graham as a misguided youth, a victim of his own intellectual curiosity. But the jury wasn't swayed. The evidence was too compelling, the damage too extensive. When the verdict was read, a palpable relief washed over the courtroom. Guilty on all counts. The sentence, life imprisonment, a fitting end to a trail of devastation that had begun in the quiet streets of 1960s London. The trial served as a stark reminder of the potential for darkness that can lurk within the most brilliant of minds. It was a sobering lesson on the thin line that separates curiosity from obsession, and the catastrophic consequences when that line is crossed. Hear the impact statements from the victims' families and witness the emotional aftermath of Graham's deadly experiments. It is a chilling tale, a stark reminder of the lethal alchemy that brewed in the mind of one young man, forever changing the lives of those around him. Graham Young's story leaves us questioning the thin line between brilliance and darkness, a gifted mind, yet so cruelly misdirected. Young's lethal fascination with toxic substances claimed the lives of innocent people, leaving a lasting impact on their families and the community at large. His crimes, born from an inquisitive mind, morphed into a chilling display of lethal alchemy. As we delve deeper into the abyss of his story, we're forced to confront the devastating consequences of his actions. The victims, forever etched in history, bear silent testimony to the havoc one individual can wreak when curiosity spirals into obsession. So, as we reflect on the legacy of lethal alchemy, remember the victims whose lives were forever changed. Thank you for joining us in this journey into the disturbing world of Graham Young. If you found this story intriguing, please like, share, and subscribe for more true crime content. Until next time, stay vigilant.